Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have the prayer and the pledge by Councilman Dustin Swear.
Let's bow our heads and pray for our neighbors over to the west of us. Let's say the Lord's Prayer for them. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
thy kingdom come, thy will be done
On earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily
daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Doyle,
Here.
Councilmember Natalie Lopez,
Present.
Councilmember Marlon Lewis,
Here.
Councilmember David Broussard,
Here.
Councilmember Deidre Ledbetter,
Here.
Councilmember Sherry Guidry,
Present.
Councilmember Dustin Swear.
here.
Thank you. Our first item is public comment. We have 2 comment cards tonight. I'll ask you to please put your cell phones on vibrate. And remember, it's not a discussion back and forth. We just listen. Madam Clerk.
Richard Phillips to discuss agenda item number 7-2.
Sounds like I got a yes this time. Thank you. I want to share my opinion on the matter of attaching a fine to an ordinance. Along with other quality of life issues the city faces, it seems that the contract with the existing waste removal company does not include certain items. Recently, the council took up the removal of trees and will address that one aspect of that problem tonight. I believe that's item number 4. My suggestion is that any proposed fine ordinance would include a grace period in order for the offender to avoid further action. This falling under responsibility of inspection and code enforcement, I happen to be a veteran of the Jefferson Parish ICE Department from July 4th, 1988 until November of 2009. And I've dealt with very similar situations where fines and threats of fines results in a desirable outcome for all. Many other ordinances should follow this suggestion in order to be more effective. I would thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Dana Duga to discuss agenda item number 5B.
Good afternoon. We attempted to put up a little welcome sign to the city of New Iberia with Eddie Delahuse's name on it. Eddie's a Hall of Fame jockey, native of New Iberia. Blake Miguez said he'll get the sign put up if the city approved it. We would have put it at the parish line, but Kathleen Blanco kind of ranked Eddie Delahuse on this one. So, but Eddie's a fine fellow. He just retired from racing. He was one of the first Cajun jockeys to leave Cajun country and make it in the big time, showing that how Cajun jockeys are quality jockeys. But fine fella, real humble little guy. You know, if you go to ERAV, there's signs for Randy Romero. You go to Catahoula, there's signs for Calvin Boreal. You know, Eddie's from here. I think we should have a sign here. Hopefully, discuss it and favorable. Again, if y'all approve it, Blake Miguez is going to, Representative Miguez is going to take care of getting the signs made and installed where y'all give them permission to do it. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. All right. Item 2.
Acceptance of the minutes of August 18th, 2020, as published on August 30th, 2020.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilman Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Gidger. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing no discussion, please vote your machines. Thank y'all very much. Item 3.
Persons to address the council. District Attorney Bo Dewey to address the council and announce candidacy for re-election as 16th Judicial District Attorney.
Good evening,
Good evening.
council members, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Romero. Good to see you again. My name is Bo Dewey. I'm fortunate to know many of you, but for the people in the audience or people watching on the video, my name is Bo Dewey. I was born and raised in Iberia Parish. I grew up in Olivier. My father was John Dewey, my mother was Dawn Hebert Dewey. I only left Iberia Parish for a short period of time, that being for college and a couple of years as a banker in Lafayette. Thereafter, I went back to law school at Tulane University, graduated in 1992, and came back and was fortunate to begin working in St. Mary Parish as a law clerk with Judge Barry Fleming. Thereafter, about 11 months later, Mr. Boudreaux, Bernard Boudreaux, who was the then DA, offered me a position as an assistant DA in the DA's office, and I gladly accepted that offer. And I've been in the office since 1993. I ran for district attorney in 2014 to take office in 15. Fortunately, was unopposed at that time. But I'm here tonight to announce my re-election campaign for district attorney for another term. And I just want to spend some time explaining to people what has occurred in our office over the past 28 years, the last 6 of which I've been district attorney, in which many things in the programs I'm fixing to describe have occurred. As an example, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that we're a 3-parish judicial district. I go from north of Interstate 10 with half of Arnaville, all the way to Amelia, which is past Morgan City. It's a really large geographical district that comprises about 190,000 citizens. What do? Well, the public perception of what we generally do when I ask people is that, well, you prosecute crimes. And that is true that we do that, but that's a small portion of what we actually do. Other things that we do is we represent by law with the legal advisors for all of the public subdivisions in the 3 parishes, some of whom take advantage of it. For instance, we have 2 of the parish councils in St. Mary and Iberia. We used to represent St. Martin Parish when Parish President Cedars took over. He was the former assistant DA, ran my office in St. Martin Parish. He and Sprinky Duron started handling that, as well as all the other airport authority. We used to represent most school boards. We still do in other parishes. So there's approximately 50 different public subdivisions that we represent, and I have 3 assistant DAs who have a full-time job of representing those public bodies. Of course, you know, the widely recognized work we do is prosecuting crimes, and what does that do? That starts with training our law enforcement agencies. We do a lot of training with all of the different municipalities throughout the 3 parishes, 3 sheriffs. We also respond to crime scenes and major crime scenes, and the chief is here, and we've worked together, oh gosh, since I had hair, right? So we, you know, we're very, very responsive to the public and to our law enforcement agencies, and go out and go help them out in the field itself. From there after, we screen files and we decide if charges are appropriate in our opinion. It's another level of review because, of course, the decision to file a crime is a very serious matter that should not be taken lightly and should take with great deliberation. We make the charging decisions. We decide on some instances to charge crimes and prosecute crimes. In a lot of other instances, we decide that the evidence does not support our burden of proof, and so we refuse those charges. And also, we have a very active pretrial diversion department. And what a pretrial diversion department is you know, there's many opportunities and options that we see, and many times where I tell people, what do? I said, I deal a lot of my time is good people making poor choices, especially our young people. We've all been young and made foolish decisions in our life, and oftentimes we don't want to ruin somebody's future by prosecuting them of a crime and convicting them. That does no good. So we offer opportunities for people to be accountable through diversion, through community service, restitution if it's appropriate in the circumstances, a level of accountability if there's some substance abuse issues or other anger management issues. We deal with those before they go to court, and if they go through that process successfully, we refuse the charge, because it's the right thing to do. Other things we do is we handle all trials, we handle the appellate work, and then also we have other alternative programs. For instance, we have drug court. Many people don't know this, but the 16th Judicial District, particularly St. Mary Parish, was the very first drug court in the state of Louisiana. In 1995, Judge Hunter modeled it after the Florida drug courts, because we realized in that process that a lot of people that are using drugs have become addicts. And the crimes are just a consequence of that, of becoming addicts, and is used to support their habit. And so the theory being is that if you correct that addiction, then you correct that criminal activity. And it's a very successful program. Its recidivism rate is much lower than people who don't go through the program. And so while it's not perfect, no program is perfect, it does offer an alternative that a person can turn into a law-abiding citizen and contribute back to their community without burdening the taxpayers with incarceration that goes along with prison sentences. So we're very proud of our drug court. We have our FINS program, our Families in Need of Services. Oftentimes that's dealing with very young individuals in our community and their parents, and trying to give them the tools necessary to handle matters that maybe a parent is struggling with, and get them back into a successful pattern of life. So we're very, very, very proud of that. We also have our Family Services Division, which is really a kind of a rapid response to everything from mental health issues with children to other socioeconomic issues that are going on out there, where we target and work in conjunction with school boards to identify problem areas and deal with them quickly, rapidly, and without involving them and getting them involved in the judicial system that can further deter their success in life. We also have a Child Support Enforcement Division. We're under a contract with the state of Louisiana where we assist single parents, mostly mothers, handle support enforcement in their individual cases. And we collect on average $22 million a year in that program. And that money goes into our community and is spent on appropriate, books, supplies, food, clothing, medical care for our children and those most in need. And a lot of people, and I certainly was surprised when I first heard of that $22 million figure, which equates to $132 million in the last 6 years, ending this year that I've been district attorney. We also have a very strong victims program. Every DA's office is responsible to have victims assistance coordinators. We have 3 in our district, 1 in each parish. 2 of those are statewide certified victims assistance coordinator. 1 is nationally certified and teaches on an international basis, Ms. Kathleen Theriot. And they do a tremendous job at dealing with victims of crimes and being there for victims of crime, making sure their needs are met, and helping the assistant DAs and the support staff handle their day-to-day activities. Basically, I have a passion for my job. I really do. I think I'm in a position where I can do a lot of good things for good people when the facts and circumstances call for it. And I take pride in that. I take pride in those success stories where I'll be in Walmart and a young gentleman will tap me on my shoulder and say, "Mr. Dewey, you remember who I am?" I'm sorry, I don't recall. He said, "Let me refresh your memory. 6 years ago, I got caught doing something very stupid. And you sat me in your office and you took a chance on me. And I want to introduce you to my wife, my children, I'm employed, and I appreciate what you did for me." And my response is, I didn't do anything. I took a chance. You did everything. You did the right thing. You did what was necessary to turn your life around and be a success. And you should pat yourself on your back because you made the difference. So I stand here to all the council members, the mayor, Ms. Romero, the public behind me and the public on video, and I humbly ask for your support in my campaign for re-election of district attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3B.
Tylen Porter Green to address the council and announce candidacy for 16th Judicial District Judge for Division H.
A way of life, huh?
That's it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and elected officials, council members, Mr. Simon, persons that are listening at home, and the community behind me. I am Ty Porter Green, and I am a candidate for District Court Judge, Division H. Some of you all may be familiar with Division H because that is the seat that was formerly held by retired Judge Lori Landry. I am so appreciative to have this opportunity to present myself to you as a candidate and to take a few moments to share some things about my message and about my history which make me uniquely prepared for this moment. 85% of my 26 years in practice have been spent as your public servant. I represented children and adults in misdemeanor offenses. I was a staff attorney with the public defender. During that course, I worked in delinquent court. I worked with, as I said, adults with misdemeanors, as well as adults whose children were in need of care. From there, I moved on and had the privilege of serving as your assistant district attorney in the parish of St. Martin. There, I led the juvenile division in all things related to juvenile, particularly in delinquency and school-related offenses, in child support cases, in foster care cases, in status offenses. Also, I prosecuted adults that had been accused of committing sex crimes, particularly when the victims were juveniles. For the last 4 years, I have had the honor of serving as an attorney consultant for the Louisiana Court Improvement Program. There, I have been working with state policymakers and other judges and lawyers and leaders in child welfare on multi-system reform in that system, knowing that if our children fare well, then our communities thrive. So I would be remiss if I, as a judicial candidate, didn't also pause to just recognize the fact that we are living in unique times. And so many things can come from that. But I'm speaking in particular as it relates to the peaceful protests that are going on in our state, in our nation, and even here in the KDM. And I bring that up because I recognize that there is a segment of our community that has developed a degree of cynicism as it relates to justice. And when we talk about that system and the cynicism that's come from it, it's when people feel unheard, or they feel unseen, or they feel unimportant in systems that are sworn to serve, care for, and protect. So when that happens and that cynicism comes up, we get what we see playing out. People are taking to the streets in peaceful protest to speak out against the systems that are supposed to protect them, the ones that are supposed to stand for liberty and justice for all. So I want the voters of Iberia, St. Martin and Iberia, and St. Mary parishes to know that I see them, that I understand that, and that I hear them. And that after working statewide with the Court Improvement Program, it is the impetus of that desire to serve that I now want to renew my direct service to the citizens of the 16th Judicial District as their next judge. Now, if you entrust me with your vote, you will elect a learned, compassionate, and hardworking professional committed to the rule of law and the even-handed application of it. I believe in accountability across the board, not only from those that we typically would identify as offenders, but also from those that have been sworn to serve those have been sworn to protect, or those who've been sworn to care for the community. I know that access to justice is also sometimes a barrier that shifts what may be just a struggling family into chaos. With me as your next judge of Division H, you will elect a jurist who values the time and the cause before me, whether you are represented as a litigant by an attorney or whether you are appearing on your own behalf. I do have a website and a lot of social media platforms that I invite you to look at, to research my record, and to get to learn more about me. But in these last few moments, I want you to know that while I am a girl from California, born and raised, I still love my home state with all my heart. I have lived in Acadiana for 25 years. And while I've been here, I was received initially by the good people of Jeanerette in 1995. Since then, I moved on and I was loved and nurtured by the families in St. Martin Parish, as well as my justice partners there. My sorority sisters of the Tri-Parish are also my family. My friends and family at St. Edward St. Jude Catholic Church, and the New Iberians who have simply made me family. You have trusted me and have treated me as your own. And in the end, I hope I have earned your continued support and your vote, because I am yours in service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, 3C.
Dee Dee Johnson-Reed to address the council and announce candidacy for New Iberia City Council, District 5.
Good evening, Council,
Good.
Ms. Mayor, and also the public. My name is Dee Dee Johnson-Reed, and I'd like to announce my candidacy for City Council in District 5. I am a native of New Iberia, but shortly after graduating from UL, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived and worked for 30 years. My career in Atlanta afforded me the opportunity to work at some really great companies that invested in my growth. I am a visionary leader with a servant heart. I have extensive knowledge and experience in business development, technology, vendor management, contract negotiations, project management, and people management. I was a small business owner, and I understand the hard work that's required to run a business and make it a success. But the most important thing, and the reason why I'm running, is because I love this community. And I want to help solve some of the problems that I see here today. I want to help to drive economic success to the area and to also open up home ownership to all of those people who desire it. I have a vision of New Iberia that doesn't have so many boarded up houses and businesses. A community where all our citizens are thriving and our children can learn to live in a safe environment. I want to help keep our city to moving forward in the right direction. So thank you all for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Item 4A.
Public hearing on ordinance 2020-14, repealing section 22 through 26 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Iberia pertaining to the registration of tree surgeons.
I need a motion to open our public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Councilwoman Guidry, I need a second. Second, Councilman Broussard. Is there any public comment on this issue? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to close our public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Councilman Guidry, Councilman Broussard. Thank you all very much. Item 4B.
Public hearing on ordinance 2020-15 to amend section 38 through 52 and 38 through 53 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Iberia relative to junk.
I need a motion to open our public hearing. Motion by Councilman Broussard. I need a second. Councilwoman Ledbetter. Is there any public comment on this item, 4B? Hearing and seeing none? Excuse Excuse me? It's an ordinance we'll go ahead and read it again.
It's ordinance number 2020-15 to amend section 3852 and 3853 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Iberia relative to junk.
Yes. Let me get to it. Not really houses, but.
It's just adding the trees to that one.
Yeah, we're adding trees. Could be around house, but we're adding trees to the junk ordinance. We have to have a way to deal with them. We've had discussions over our last few meetings, and we're updating our ordinances concerning trees. And this one, we're going to be able to treat some of the tree issues as junk, as our existing junk ordinance already allows the city at certain times, after many chances to redeem themselves and public notice, that we can go and pick junk up on property. So we're heading that way with our tree limbs. Not all of them, but that's what this is pertaining to. Thank you. First time I ever had public comment, huh? I got excited. Okay, anybody else?
Do we need her name?
No, I don't think so. Okay, well then I need a motion to close our public hearing. Motion by Councilman Broussard, second by Councilwoman Ledbetter. Thank you. Now we go to 4C.
Public hearing on special ordinance number 2019-2020-13, amending the budget to reflect year-to-date activity.
I need motion to open the public hearing. Mayor Pro Tem Dan, and I need a second.
Motion.
Councilman Broussard. Is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, I need a motion to close.
Motion.
Councilman Broussard. Mayor Pro Tem Dan Dahl. Thank you all very much. Now we move on to item 5. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2057, appointing Kevin Zurang as Director to the Board of Louisiana Local Government Environmental Facilities and Community Development Authority.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Swear and a second by Councilwoman Guidry. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, please vote your machines. Thank you very much. Item 5B.
Resolution number 20-58, recognizing Eddie Delahousie and his induction to the Fairgrounds Racing Hall of Fame and the U.S. Racing Hall of Fame and Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame.
And we have a resolution.
Whereas Eddie Delahousie, a native of New Iberia and Iberia Parish, has become an accomplished jockey in the racing industry nationwide, and whereas Eddie Delahousie has been the recipient of many awards, United States Champion Jockey by Wins, 1978, and George Wolfe Memorial Jockey Award, 1981, and whereas Eddie Delahousie has won the Kentucky Derby, 1982, 1983, Preakness Stakes, 1988, Belmont Stakes, 1988, 1992, Breeders' Cup Classic, 1992, and a very long list of major Breeders' Cup races and major stake races. And whereas Eddie Delahousie has ridden and won on many outstanding horses, Sonny's Halo, Gateau del Sol, Risen Star, AP Indy, and a long list of thoroughbred racehorse athletes. And whereas Eddie Delahousie had a humble start as a jockey on the Cajun Bush tracks, many in Iberia Parish, to a professional career beginning in 1968 through his retirement in 2003 with 39,214 mounts, 6,384 wins, and earning 195,884 in his career all time as of 2020. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of New Iberia that signs be erected on major thoroughfares in the City of New Iberia, Louisiana, recognizing Eddie Delahousie and his induction to the Fairgrounds Racing Hall of Fame, United States Racing Hall of Fame, and Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and that the mayor and his administration for the City of New Iberia, Louisiana, are authorized to install signs recognizing Eddie Delahousie to the Fairgrounds Racing Hall of Fame, the United States Racing Hall of Fame, and the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Dahl and Councilman Lewis. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I
Councilman Lewis.
just was sitting here reminiscing, Eddie's daddy and my grandfather, Mr. Austin Delahousie, who was over Public Works in 1980 something. He brought Eddie to our grandfather's house when he won the Kentucky Derby, and he brought an autographed picture, and I was 10 or 12 years old. So when I heard Mr. Dugas talking about him, I kind of got excited. Because though I'm born and raised in the West End, and I'm very proud of the West End, I'm also a proud New Iberian and everybody that accomplished something great from New Iberian. I was so excited. Dan beat me on the motion, but I said I'm getting this motion. But I'm glad we're able to participate in this, man. And I'm glad to have, to know him. He may not remember me because I was a kid, but I knew Mr. Austin. My grandfather was tight. It just felt good to be a part of that.
Cool. Neat. Anybody else? Dan.
Yeah, Mayor, it's amazing how many people started in New Iberia and became and part of the history, and people don't know about it. So I really believe in resolutions such as this with all types of people to let the people know the talent that we had in this city, in this parish, that they don't get recognized until sometimes after they pass. And I just think it's a good thing for the community for us to educate the public about the famous people we had that made New Iberia what it is today. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Look, you're only as good as your history. And the more we promote our history and the more we promote our community and its great diversity, the better off we're going to be. The more people will be interested in living here, come and visit here. So anything we can do that's a positive thing, for someone who's accomplished so much from here, I think it's a win-win. Anything further? Mr. Broussard.
Thanks to Mr. Migas to put up this sign, and whatever he's going to donate, we appreciate his help.
Good, good. Anything further? Then I'll ask you that you please vote your machines. Thank you all very much. Now we move on to item 6A.
Adoption of ordinance 2020-14, repealing section 2226 of the Code and Ordinances of the City of New Iberia pertaining to the registration of tree surgeons.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilman Broussard. Councilwoman Ledbetter. Any discussion? Hearing seen none, please vote your machines. That's quick. Thank you all very much. Item 6B. You're getting fast.
Adoption of ordinance 2020-15 to amend section 3852 and 3853 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Iberia relative to junk.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Councilman Swear. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think it was Councilwoman Guidry this time. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Please vote your machines. Thank you all very much. Item 6C.
Adoption of special ordinance number 2019-2020-13, amending the budget to reflect year-to-date activity.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Dahl. Do I have a second?
Motion.
Councilman Broussard. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote your machines.
Missed it.
Please vote your
Sorry.
machines. Thank you. Item 7A.
Mayor DeCourt to discuss options for potential ordinance that would fine property owners who throw out furniture or other debris that is too large for collection at the road.
Great, thank you. Can you put that picture up? Appreciate it.
Photos.
Yeah, picture's worth 1,000 words. And this is 1,000 pieces of junk. What I would like to have a discussion about, okay? We have had a big problem, probably long before we all got here, but since we've been here, of it's usually a landlord, it's usually a rental situation, and they clean out for whatever reason. Could be an eviction, could just be someone moved and abandoned their property, could be somebody didn't pay their rent, I don't know. But what's happening is we are receiving or getting large amounts of trash, okay? That pops up overnight, then we have all the neighbors calling. It's too big to pick up in the trash removal contract that we have. Gordon's is not gonna pick that up. It is too much. Will he pick up a refrigerator? Don't panic. Will he pick up a sofa? The things that we need him to pick up? Yes. When it's this amount and overnight, he's not going to pick it up. We are having continuous problems of the neighbors calling. There's been instances where it sat for a couple of weeks. We need a new tool in the toolbox. You know, in this case, I'll be honest, a hurricane was coming. I picked it up because it was flying debris, getting our drains. Excuse me, I don't have COVID. We can't have that, okay? So I've got to find a new tool in the toolbox. I would like to see an ordinance. I do give people chances. We do have an ordinance to pick up junk that they have up to 30 days to clean it up. I don't think I can wait 30 days for this. I would like to have some element of a threat of a fine, contact the property owner, give them a reasonable amount of time, but what is a reasonable amount of time? That's the big question. When we have a storm coming or rain, or it's just sitting there rotting away, I'm not sure how much that time is. But I wanted a discussion item. Oh man, choked to death. I wanted a discussion item to begin to address this kind of issue because this is not the first time. This has happened quite a few times. How many times has a council person called me that they've gotten 10 calls about all the neighbors and what are we going to do? So that's kind of my issue, or our issue, and I wanted to just have an open discussion. Deidre does a great job chairing our ordinance committee, and we are attacking our ordinances and changing them one at a time and putting more teeth in them and making things that are outdated, you know, done with, and amending ordinances. We're very busy with that. That's one of the committees I'm very proud of because we do a lot of ordinances. This is one I'd like to address, but before I started, I wanted some feedback, so I'm done. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I believe in fines, and I think the stricter the fine and more expensive the fine, the more it catches their attention. We got all kind of ordinances on the books, and the fines we have, some people just do it and pay the fine because it's not much.
Yeah, we become people's yard man, you know?
So, you know, I know people that don't cut their grass, and it's cheaper for them to let the city cut it and pay it at the end of the year.
That's right.
So I'm on to fines, and it takes, when people do this, they do it at night, and normally they do it, it's not their property, most of the time. And you know how many times I called you about this? Everybody did, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, someone has to be responsible. Now, that's where we're gonna have to work this out, because you can't make, you can make the owner of the property responsible, but if he didn't put the trash there, then how do you make him responsible? So I know it's a tough decision to make. And, you know, these things, if people wanna go out to eat, within an hour they make that decision, go eat. We give 30 days for fine. I think it's too long. I mean, I think a short fine, if you don't pay it, you take care of it. When you go to court, they don't give you an extended amount of time to pay your fine. You pay it when you get there. So I'm all in favor, and I think the council always got something to say about it, but I think the fine should be stiff because it costs us to do it. And I think the timeline should be shortened and not something drug out because they don't have time to do it. That excuse is pretty much worn out.
Good.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Good. Natalie?
And Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we already have a state statute for gross littering, which this seems like it is falling under?
A criminal statute or?
For gross littering. 'Cause I remember we had a couple cases where, I remember one under Como, it was a guy on a highway and like all his stuff blew out and like he didn't turn around and get it and it was big stuff. But yeah, gross littering. I just looked it up. Revised statute 30:2531.1. No person shall intentionally dispose or permit the disposal of any household or office furniture, appliances, automotive parts, da 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 da. It goes on a list that I think that's something we can look into and just. It looks like the fine goes up to over $1,000, which normally is what, 500. Fine is the top fine for a misdemeanor, right?
I don't know, but under the code, you know, we have violations, but that's probably dumping on somebody else's property, right? This guy probably thinks somebody's gonna pick that up at the street.
Public highway, public right-of-way, public park, beach, campground, forest, land, recreation area, trailer park, highway, road, street, or alley.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
except when such property is designated by the state or by any of its agencies or political subdivisions for the disposal of such items, and such person is authorized to use such property for such purpose.
Well, I don't think that's gonna cover somebody putting stuff on their own property.
But this is on the right of way.
This is not their own problem.
This is the right of way.
This time it's not. Now,
If
they
it's
are
on
some-
your own property,
they
then
are
we're under the
sometimes-
junk ordinance and Jimmy goes do what he has to do.
Right,
This
takes
is on
30
the right
days.
of way.
I think we need a tool to deal with stuff that's gonna be, I mean, I don't know that that's in the street right away. It's not in the street.
I mean, it's even with the electrical pole. Normally the right of way is around the I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just saying this list, these big items, that's what these are. These are household furniture and appliances. I mean, I think it's something worth looking into before we go round and round and round when there's already a statute on the books under criminal law that we can just, it's in effect right now. The sheriff's office could go right now if we place the call on that. That's all I have.
Well, I think we need a conversation with our prosecutor.
Okay,
Definitely.
definitely. Who had their hand next? I'm not sure. Trying to get Dustin. I'm calling you. Then I'm gonna come back.
Appreciate it. I recognize that spot.
Yeah,
Exactly what you
yeah.
said.
My phone recognized it.
Yeah, I appreciate, thank you for having it picked up.
Well,
before
thank
the
God we had a
storm.
storm coming and I had a reason that. I
Appreciate
couldn't
that,
pick it
'cause we
up.
had,
Just-
you know-
Really, I was hung if I did.
Uh,
No choice.
You know?
So, we do have a problem with repeat offenders, correct? Doing this over and over again. In fact, Sunday I went out to another
In
location.
some instances, it's the same property owner.
So if anybody wants to get their white high top sneakers and there's a pill bottle and a pill breaker, they're more than welcome. They can call me anytime they want. But my suggestion is, so we put fines in place, and the repeat offenders continue to do it. We have a marshal's office that goes out and takes these people and puts them out doing community service, picking up the trash that they putting out. Would that be something possible we can look
It
into?
could be. I mean, we have a police department that handles issues as well. We have a city court that, you're right, gives people community service.
Okay. I just thought maybe there might have been a thought or suggestion.
I'm gonna take any suggestion I can.
If they can put it out, they might as well be able to pick it up. And
Yeah.
they can pick it up and
Maintenance and the penalties.
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, that's all I gotta say. But thank you for doing that for us.
Okay, well, we got a problem we gotta address.
Yeah.
Who is next on this side? Mr. Broussard.
Hurricane time, you see that in front of everybody's house if you get hit hard. That doesn't pertain to hurricane time, right? I wanna
No,
make sure the
I'm
public-
not looking, a natural disaster is, I'm not picking on anybody, okay? A natural disaster is something different. Like I said, your refrigerator goes out, your stove goes out, you know, you get rid of one sofa, we have a way to deal with that. This is for these type of instances that are just everyday occurrences from, you know, rental property mostly.
That's all I have to say. I want the public to know.
I understand.
A
That's a good
hurricane
point.
comes
No, that's a
and
good
we
point.
have to-
We're not trying to hurt anybody.
We put it all at the street. It's gonna be picked up through that time.
Yes, sir. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, so if we can recalibrate on an ordinance, or maybe come up with one, what about, someone brought it up earlier, I can't remember which one, who said it, but they dumping stuff like that on empty, properties. We also have a problem with that as well. Like you said, it appears, you go to bed and then you wake up and it appears on an empty lot across the street somewheres and nobody know who did it. So maybe we can consider an ordinance, maybe under the nuisance law, concerning, that type of dumping also on empty lots as well.
That's fine. I mean, I want to, we do go after the junk ordinance. It does take a while to do that. But I'm for whatever we can do to stop this. We all know we have a huge problem with tires. That's another issue in itself. But we are having some dumping issues around town. We would love to catch them. It's not that easy to do. Yeah, anything we can add to an existing ordinance or a new ordinance that can tighten some of this up, certainly. Yes, sir.
I think the only comment I have, I think the landlords ought to be held to a high standard. That's the price of doing business, so I don't know if the wording would speak just to landlords or, and Dan had a great point about, what if somebody else drops it on somebody else's property in the middle of the night, because most landlords, they don't keep up with their property. They only come to pick up the rent. They don't. and some of them get it mailed to them or what have you. I've seen most of this around my district, around the West End, you know, because that's where a lot of rental properties are at. So it seems like a tough thing to do, because it's kind of like now then Natalie, good work on that research on that law.
Mhm.
You know, there's something already in place, then we need to look at that. But I know, like, for me, there's an apartment complex or housing complex that it's in a cutout in the parish. It's not everybody think it's in District 2, but it's all good though. But the driveway, the entrance is on, the city property. They dump trash there regularly. Their furniture goes in the front of there. And I need to go talk to the owner and tell them they need a bin. To me, they need a bin. Like, they're a commercial business. They need a bin so that people could dump in there. Because really, they're getting by with, putting their tenant stuff at the road. They're getting a free service from Gardens and from us, because that's who's picking it up. I know for a fact, because, I call in and say, look, we got some debris at the front of this apartment complex, and in 2 days it's picked up, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks, but that's coming out of that apartment complex. They should be responsible for that, for having it moved.
Mhm.
So when Garden missed, it's been working out, but I don't think they should be, with all the other problems we got, I don't think they should be able to get away with having, a free ride. Because we don't pay to pick up parish trash, right?
No.
So that's technically parish trash being dumped on city property, and we paying to have it picked up.
Mhm.
I just wanted to point that out. I don't know how many problems they got like that around the city, but I know in District 2 there's at least one
Mhm.
that I get calls about all the time.
Okay, good. Anybody else? And what we're gonna do now that there is an interest in, I'm sorry, there's no public comment during the meeting. Now that there is an interest and we've kind of had an initial discussion, I'm gonna have our clerk, Erin, research what other communities do. She can contact LMA, she can, do requests, because other people have these same problems. So that's kind of my next step, and then it'll go to Deidre's committee, and we'll begin working on something and come back to you, checking the state statute that you found, getting with Jeff. Jeff is on the committee as well. So we'll make it work, and at a later date, we'll bring something back. I don't want to wait too long, but we'll bring something back to address this. But I thought that this was a good discussion. Thank you,
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
one more question.
Sure.
So the landlord, okay, normally it's a situation where the landlord is evicting somebody, right?
Sometimes, not all the time.
Not all the time.
Sometimes people move and just throw everything out.
Because that happens a lot. Gardens have been picking it up, right?
Not all the time, no. It sits and sits. We have some that was out there for a couple of months. Not every inch, is because Gordon's contract is specific to the amount, and he's not gonna pick it up. So we've had some other instances where the city ended up having to come in and pick it up. We've had some that we did enact the junk ordinance, that after it sat for 2 or 3 weeks, it took 30 days to go through the junk ordinance. So now we have people that are calling here for almost 2 months. Because, and it's our system, it's the law, it's nothing I can do about it, but we feel calls on that, it's been 30 days, and I'm like, yeah, because it sat for 2 weeks, and then I had to give them 30 days notice. Same thing with cars sometimes, people call about cars, and they'll say, I called you 3 weeks ago, well, I have to wait 30 days, just picked one up by the sugar mill, and we had to wait a month. Somebody ran into it in the meantime and totaled the car, so the people certainly weren't coming back and getting it. And so it sat for 30 days, and it was 32 days when it got picked up, or 31 days, something like that. So, but that's our process. That's the law. So some of this, we have been dealing with, and like I said, the city, I'll pick it up if there's the last resort, and to protect life and limb and drainage and those kind of things. But really, we have to find a better solution. Mr. Broussard.
Sherry, I think you run up the committee on junk. We have a meeting, I hope, pretty soon on the gas tanks and tires. We're gonna come up to a head, and we have a budget meeting, I think, next week, Mr. Mayor.
We have 2 budget meetings now. We have 2 nights next week.
We gotta figure out a little bit of a fund. We talked about that before. We can't leave just little spots of junk in front of these empty lots and rent houses and say we can't pick them up. We have to get to the bottom of that, Miss Sherry. So if you can have your meeting in the next month or so, we'll appreciate it.
And I'm hoping we handle that by ordinance as well.
Mayor, I wasn't quite finished. The
Yeah,
point
sure.
I'm
I'm
making,
sorry.
it's fair that the landlord knows what is his responsibility right now, because we do have,
Oh, yeah.
a tape recorded, and we have an opportunity to let the landlord know what his responsibility is when evicting somebody or whatever the case is.
Oh, I agree.
And his responsibility is
Pick it up.
Pick it
Get
up.
a dumpster, pick it up, don't leave it on the curb, and don't inflict it on the whole rest of the neighborhood. But that's a good point. And sometimes, not all the time, but every once in a while, these discussions that we have, you think nobody watches these meetings, but every once in a while, it sinks in and it does some good. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Anybody else? Thank you. Well, now we'll move on to one more discussion item. Madam Clerk?
Mayor DeCourt to discuss restarting demolition projects that were suspended due to COVID-19.
We started off at a bang early in the year. Remember, we did 14 houses at once and overloaded. Jeff Simon had a hell of a lot of work. Then COVID came. I didn't know where our money was. Nobody did. So we completely stopped demolitions, didn't do any more. We have been waiting. I waited for our audit. Our audit has passed. We are not perfect, but our taxes are still good. Again, like we always do. I can't thank people enough for supporting local and buying local, because our taxes have not taken, it's taken a hit, but nothing near compared to other communities. So seeing that that wasn't a quirk and that it's a trend, and that over the last few months we really seem to be holding our own thanks to our new stores and our citizens who spend here, we're ready to crank up again. So y'all all received a list of new demos, possible demos, and y'all received the list, because it's been a while, of the demos that were to take place. Remember, the beginning of the year, we budgeted $100,000. We have $60,000 left to go toward demo, and it's budget time. So next week, I plan on surcharging the budget again to where we get back to $100,000. But I thought, let's do it before we go to budget next week, just to kind of, no offense, light the fire a little bit. So I want to get back on it, hit the burners. It is something that we were committed to do. We have done quite a few demos, but we, like I said, we stopped for a financial reason. So please take the old list that we already have demos, and let's look at that again, and that'll come back up, and Jimmy will start bringing those. Look at the new list, and we did the same thing we did a while back to produce those 14, was ride around and look at not everyone, but look at some of the worst. A burnt house is cheap to tear down. So I always try to throw some burnt houses in, and I always try to throw some trailers in, because they're quick to tear down and our money goes further. So it's a combination of those and just other houses. Now, you all gonna have houses in addition to that. Turn them in. Like I said, we cooled it for a while. I don't want to do that. I want to get us going again. We will pledge more money to where we have another 100,000 to start. It's an important issue. Like I said, we put it on hold, so I just thought publicly I would say, yes, it's been on hold. Those are the reasons it's been on hold, and it's kind of time to kick it up again. Like before the meeting, Dustin pointed out a trailer that he and I had looked at a long time ago, and, it's time to get that on the list. You all are going to have some that, aren't on this list. Please turn them into Hillary, the procedure, and we can get the ball rolling again to begin to, clean up. It goes along with these ordinances we're trying to pass. It is just past time. We had a good little thing going, and then, like I said, we paused. Well, it's time to start the engines again. That's kind of me. And any comments? Mr. Broussard?
We had 3 years, we didn't tear one down. 3 years. Somebody on this council lit the fire,
We didn't tear down for 3 years.
about 2 or 3 years before we took them down finally with the ones you did, a year ago.
Okay.
But I want to clear the air that whoever lit the fire to get them down, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, some of us council members, District 1, District 3, District 6, we had 2 taken down. We work as a team, as a whole city. Miss Sherry, Miss Marlowe, we had 2 in my district. I think y'all had 4 or 5 in each one of y'all districts. We work as a team. We gave y'all a lot of slack, because it's a whole city we're looking at, to demolish, and y'all had a bunch in y'all area. So we gave in. I'd like to take my 3 or 4, another 3 or 4 in my district, But I'll remember that, so, in a big way, I wanna mention that we're working as a team.
Yes, sir.
That some of the bad areas, we took more houses down, and it shows good now in the city, so. Well, it was 2 or 3 years, Mr. Mayor, we didn't touch some of them houses.
Okay, I believe you.
And when we started doing it, it was very good.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad I got the 2 I got. It satisfied my district a lot.
Turn in some more if you need to.
This is my word on it.
All right, thank you, Mr. B. Anybody else? Peter?
Well, Mr. Broussard, feel good about your 3, 'cause I got 0,
Oh, yeah.
none in my district. So I'm up for 3+, I think, on this list.
All right.
God, I didn't look at yours, but
I know, there was none.
I knew-
There was none.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask, we did have a list of those houses to be boarded up too. There was
We-
a long list of those.
We have never, that's a new ordinance, and we have never boarded up, I mean, we passed an ordinance to begin to board up. We've never boarded up a house yet.
I know, but there was a list.
Yes, ma'am. And I think Jimmy still has a boarding list.
36.
36 houses. Public Works had some issues of getting to it, and we're gonna have to work through that. They definitely can't do it at all when it's grass cutting, because they are shorthanded and they can't keep up. It's, in sentiment, it's a good ordinance. You know, tearing down is easier, actually, more drastic, but easier because you sub that out. That is easier because you get a contractor in. So before we start boarding up, and maybe that's gonna be I might answer my own question. We might have to find a subcontractor that we could hire to do that, because Public Works, you know, we tried 2 or 3 times, said, okay, we're gonna gear up for boarding, and either something came up with a drainage project or the grass hit, and they just never could man up enough to do it. So maybe what we need to do is revisit that list and try to find some contractor that we could, just like we do with the demos. We never discussed that before, but that might be an option, because you're right, we have a list, there's 36 houses sitting there. It's something new because the city's never done that before, but could be another alternative, and it'd be cheaper than tearing down. Our money would go further.
Well, I know a lot of the houses on that list right now, they wide open. The doors, there are no doors on the houses. So are we gonna go with trying to board them or tear all of those down? Cause it's a lot of them. Like you said, it's the list. Do we wanna move some from the boarding list to the demolished list? Because they've deteriorated since the time that we looked at boarding them up.
I might not be a bad idea for Jimmy to revisit them and look at them. You know, they know, but I mean, it's only, I know that's a lot. I'm not trying to say Jimmy doesn't work, but it's only 36 houses. Jimmy can revisit the boarded ones and ride by and just see if he thinks they've deteriorated and they're worse. That might be a good idea.
Okay, just remember,
You didn't get any. Yes, ma'am.
I get at least 5.
5? Okay. Well,
I have some, and I know which ones
turn them
I
in.
want.
Turn them in. And like I said, please look at the list we have and prioritize it so
Oh,
that,
they're on the list.
you know.
They were on the list.
I know that, but just look at them, and what I'd like each council person to do in their district is tell me which one you want first, which one you want. I mean, we know we can't do them all at once. The legal work that it puts on the city attorney is not a small amount of work. I mean, it takes him an amount of time to find all the property owners, contact all the, you got to go through the system, you got to give them so many days, you got to send registered letters, you got to see if the letters come back. I mean, it's a process. This is the most drastic thing that government can do, is tear somebody's property down. So you can't take it lightly. But please prioritize by your district which ones you want first, so that would be, and I can't bring him, the experiment failed when we brought 14 at once, which is too much. I'm going to send 1 or 2 per district, and then bring them up 5 at a time. Yes, ma'am.
5.
Okay, well, you can't get 5 at once, but I owe you some. That's fine. I agree with
I
that.
need to.
Yes, ma'am.
You owe me.
Well, it's all for the city. Next. Dustin.
Earlier I mentioned about community service, right?
Mhm.
So instead of hiring a subcontract, why we do some community service? Put some of these guys and gals boarding up houses.
I'm not too sure of my liability for that. If they get hurt, you know,
What if they get hurt
You-
picking up trash?
I'm covered by state statute because I already checked.
Okay.
We're covered by state statute for picking up trash, okay?
Alright.
When the judge gives you community service to pick up trash, because I had a guy fall and say he hurt his ankle, but it wasn't Yeah, we had no liability in that.
Okay.
That's only, and they sign a waiver and they go to court, but that's only for trash. It's not gonna extend to everything else. I can't send you to remodel
Sign
my
a-
house because you're on
You
community.
can sign a
service.
waiver and be chopped his thumb off.
Yeah, no, I don't think we can do that. I
It'd
think,
be like, or I'm sending AC people to come fix the AC.
yeah, Dan, we got a job for you.
I don't need no more jobs.
But I kinda think our liability would be a little too much to do that, you know. It's a good sentiment, though.
But thanks for tearing the one down in my district, what you did. I appreciate that.
Well,
Oh, Mr. B.
yes, sir.
I just, Ms. Ledbetter, you wanna get five houses torn down or boarded up?
Torn down.
Oh, man, I only got one torn down.
One.
I only
Hey,
got
look,
one torn down.
Don't be misleading by this, okay? We had a lot of success
Yeah, I only
stories
got one
that
torn
we
down.
brought
So there's
houses
14 we
and
can't
people
add?
fixed them.
Uh-huh.
You know,
So my,
we'd have a lot of them that we said they were demoed. People came and we talked them, coached them, coerced them into
Beg
fixing
them.
them, begged them, because we would rather see them fix them. Who wants to represent an empty lot? We want to represent houses. So while the number might be large where we tore down, we brought more houses. We just had some success of people fixing them. Anyway,
but that brings my point. I like boarding better than tearing down. I really think that boarding is a better solution. You know, once we assess those houses and see if they can be saved.
Mhm.
Because most of the houses that we boarding or tearing down, they're already adjudicated, right?
not in all instances.
Not a lot of them, but
Not
some
in
of
all
them.
instances, because it's
So what?
mostly not adjudicated, really. Cause
Most of them are
it's
not
owned.
adjudicated?
Most of them are owners. Most of them, because look at all the people that come. We rarely have people that
You're right,
aren't
you're
there to
right.
represent.
You're
You know,
right, you're right.
so it's mostly people's houses who they just walked away. They still own it, but they just haven't done anything to take care of their business.
But are they still paying the taxes in most
Yeah,
cases?
because they're not adjudicated.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying about boarding them up, it get really sticky. Cause now you're because now you're doing their work.
Right.
You're doing their
They
work.
getting a free-
If
And,
they-
and if you
job.
remember,
If
we
they're
had a
paying
debate
taxes.
about that when we, because they never had a boarding ordinance. We had a debate about that. Is that something good in a way? Yes, it might preserve a house, maybe that someone would fix up later. But
Right.
on the flip side, why isn't that person taking care
Why
of their
is- why
property?
are they
I
preserving
remember
their
we
own
had a big discussion about that.
So I was leaning more towards the boarding up the adjudicated houses,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because they're being sold by Civic Source, and if you board them up, they can be
Well,
saved and
We have over
saved and
1,000
sold.
adjudicated. We have 500 and something that we can act on fairly quickly. Remember, they have to be adjudicated for 5 years before we can touch them. So when you ride by and see a house and say, why isn't somebody doing with it, or why isn't the city doing anything, I can't even act on it till 5 years. And the time is ticking. So those houses, that doesn't mean somebody's going to buy them.
Right.
You know, and Civic Source lists the ones that are past 5 years that they can clear the title because they have their own title company. But look at we probably have 300 and something, 400 listed with Civic Source. We don't sell that many. You know, we sold the cream of the crop at first. And then now, I'm not being ugly, there's some great deals out there, civicsource.com. But on the flip side, there are not a lot of takers in this economy. So we're not selling that many houses. It's been months and months since we sold a house. So, you know, but some of them remember them in limbo, that we can't touch them or do anything with them for 5 years.
But we can't cut the grass though.
We can turn it in, we can cut the grass, and then we add it to the taxes that they haven't paid. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I just want to thank you for putting this on the agenda. I'm glad that we eradicated some of the misinformation that's floating around into the hearts and minds of the people. And I remember those 500 adjudicated properties that you talked about have to sit for 5 years. I remember you and I gotten together and you came up with a map. All
It's in the office.
Yes, in the office, of all the adjudicated properties, and you had a push pin, and to my surprise, I mean, they're mostly all in particular areas. I remember, around, I think I did this at a neighborhood watch group, in District 5 that was held at, the Masonic Hall, where, I led the charge, concerning these, adjudicated properties, and I think at that time you had discovered over 500 blighted properties, sir. By the time the research was done, I implored some of the residents in particular areas, especially in the downtown area. I remembered specifically where we talked about different opportunities, how important it is for If you live in a certain area and there's an adjudicated property to the right or left of you, or in front of, or in the back of you, you know, I just kind of encouraged people at that time the residents at that time to, purchase those properties. You know, city government, any local government or municipality should be the last resort when it comes down to adjudicated properties or properties, abandoned properties where people have just walked away from the homes. And in my research, many a times I've noticed that some of the children, older children have, and through all the legal things that Mr. Jeff described to us a lot of times, it's hard to get a hold to some of these children that have inherited the property. So what's happening is one might live in Texas, one might live in Houston, one might live in Dallas or another state, and you know, Atlanta or something, and it's hard to get in touch with all the ownership of that particular property. So, you know, again, just walking away from properties and then leaving it for the city to handle, it's kind of tough. And, you know, we just have to make sure that we exhausting all avenues of these properties and taking responsibility for our own neighborhoods. And then the city can step in at the last resort. And I remember we had a public hearing around October 2019 about those 14 properties, Mayor, to be looked at for demolition. Then we created also an emergency boarding list that we just talked about. And also too, I think that the misinformation that's being floated around, and I just want to caution the District 5 residents and the residents of this city, you know, just be careful on the misinformation that may be floating around concerning demolition and how this process works, because it's not a quick fix or easy flip the pancake process. I mean, it actually takes a lot of work, legal work on Mr. Jeff's part. It takes a lot of work on Mr. Jimmy's part. And, you know, finally, even when we get to that portion of demolition, then there's, I think it's called asbestos, where we actually do an asbestos test. That costs the city, that costs the taxpayer dollars. You know, so there's a lot of things that goes along with just pointing at a house and say, why is this house not torn down? Why is this house still in our neighborhood? And things. I just want us to, so I'm just glad we recalibrated some of this misinformation for some of the residents so that we all in the same on the same page. I yield back at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other discussion on this? Well, thank y'all. And like I said, let's get going on that again because it's time. Yes, ma'am.
Can Jimmy send us the list again?
Sure. I think Sandra emailed the list of the houses that were already on the demo list and the new houses to everybody. But Jimmy, we can do that again, and I'll send you.
So I can be sure that all my houses on that list.
Yes, ma'am. That you have 2 houses on the list. I understand.
2 houses.
Okay, now we go to
Yeah, I got that.
Councilman's remarks. I'll start with Natalie.
I don't have much to say today. Just a quick thing for me as a younger person who votes. There's so much going on right now in the United States with regard to this presidential election, with regard to racism, and it really is just mind-blowing to see the things I'm seeing, and I just hope that my generation, I mean, I hope for everyone, but for my generation and after, to truly understand that just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you have to vote Republican every time. Just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat every time. And I just really hope that this year that citizens of the United States really look from top to bottom, from your president to your local council person, and really get educated on that person. Because I think a lot of the turmoil that has developed in the United States, and this is just my opinion, but is due to a huge movement of people voting for a party rather than a person. And we really need to be careful who we elect. So that's just my take on what's going on, and that's just what I hope for the world and for District 1 and everyone else in it.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah, man, like I said before, I'm here for the long haul, man. I want to see New Iberia grow. I want to see it beautiful, and I want to see it thrive. As always, Mayor, I'm here to serve. My phone number is 337-577-3448. Can't solve every problem, but I'll definitely address those that I can. That's all I have, Mayor.
thank you. Mr. Broussard.
We're very glad to have some of the past parish people in here and current, bringing up Eddie Delahousie. We don't think everything, but y'all thought about it ahead of time. We appreciate it, bringing it up, putting it up, and getting the respect that he deserves. So we thank you for being in the audience. I come visit y'all place too. We bring up things. We appreciate you coming in here and bringing that up. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for everything you're doing. We're still running, the city's going forward. The whole council. We worked as a team this last 3.5 years, and it shows. So let's keep it, Mr. Dahl. Your next moves, whatever you do, holler at me. Help you out. We need you somewhere. You've been real.
Leave me in my house.
That's funny. Thank you, Mr. B. Dan.
Well, I want to thank everybody that prayed so much for us not to get that hurricane right up in Amelia Bay. I feel almost guilty because now we got to pray for the people that got hit in Cameron and in Lake Charles. I've seen some pictures and I almost feel guilty, but you can't predict these things. But I want to thank the mayor and parish president and parish council and city council. I think we were ready for anything, and luckily we didn't have to do what they have to do in Marvin City. And I'm so glad about the citizens of New Iberia. They really, I think, took it seriously. You looked at one channel, you thought there was nothing left of Louisiana. You go next channel, hey, it's not bad, a storm. It just, depending how the news people bring almost anything right now, is how you take it. But I think, I want to thank you, Mayor, because we were in contact through this whole thing, and you were on top of everything, and we were ready for everything, and luckily we didn't have to use everything that we would have to use. And I was just amazed about the people that obeyed the curfew. Sometimes I didn't, I'm not gonna lie, but I was out there, it's like everybody else was kind of obeying the curfew, and how the trouble really wasn't as bad as it could have been. And hey, look, that's why New Iberia is what it is. I want to thank everybody and you, Mayor, for being a leader to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, but it's a team effort. A lot of department heads, a lot of city employees, a lot of people involved, a lot of people. Thank you. Deidre.
I just want to say that our little town remains prayed up. Remember, I always say you have to be prayed up, especially during this hurricane season. We were spared one more time. It's not over, so continue to pray about it, that we get through this season and we fare as well as we had this time. The turmoil in the United States today, I just want to say that what Councilwoman Lopez said was something that's very, very true. Please vote this year, and you should vote every year, but this year in particular, please make every effort to go out and vote. Request your absentee ballots if you need to have one now and get it in the mail, because as you know, the mail has been delayed for some reasons. So get it in or bring it to the registrar's office as soon as you can. COVID is not over, so just keep in mind you still have to stay distance, you still have to wash your hands. You still have to wear your mask. Things have gotten better here in the state. Things are going down a little bit. But once we pump the brakes, things tend to go back up. So if we keep our foot on the pedal, going forward, doing what we're supposed to do, we can come through this. But everybody has to do their part. It can't just be some people and not other people. Everybody has to do it if it's going to be successful. So I just want to let everybody know, please continue doing what you're doing and make sure you go out and vote.
Thank you. Sure.
I agree with Councilwoman Lopez and also Councilwoman Deidre Ledbetter when it comes down to the civil unrest. I usually try not to comment too many times on federal issues and neighboring towns. But if the Spirit of the Lord is not going with you when you walk out your door, or when you consider going to protest for standing up for some injustices, then if the Spirit of the Lord is not with you, then I suggest you just stay home and pray about it. I want to thank the pastors that remained, about 20-something pastors that was on the line before the hurricane, that included me on the call, that prayed for our city to be spared. And I believe that God heard the citizens' prayer and our prayer. So I'm thankful for that. Public Works, I just want to give a shout out to the Public Works Department. Man, I'm telling you, the next day after the hurricane, they were out there early in the morning, Mayor. They were picking up and clearing the road, the debris and stuff. And I was just so thankful to be a citizen in this town. I mean, it was a quick cleanup. We still have a few little sectors here and there that we're still working on. But for the most part, Public Works was out there cleaning up the next day, clearing roads, debris, and that type of stuff. So I was very thankful for that. Our city employees is always at it each and every day. Now, Mayor, the sandbags, we had some discrepancies concerning the elderly. I know we gave out at least, 70,000 tons of sand?
No, 70 tons of sand.
Oh, 70, oh, okay. I thought it was 70,000.
Yes, no, 70 tons.
I'm thinking it's another conversation I had with someone else. Okay.
We started early, and we did have many dump trucks of sand.
Yes, so, some of them, the elderly called me in my district, and, I was just thinking maybe we can get, for those that cannot pick up a shovel themselves and, put it in the bag and then lift it and put it in the trunk. I'm talking about the elderly or people that cannot do that physically. Can we consider maybe look at that area and maybe talk about that another time, because I noticed I received quite a few calls concerning
We
that.
had two.
I even went out there and helped one lady myself put it in my truck, load it up, and then brought it to her house and put it in front of her doors. So
We had two church groups that were going to volunteer, and I think it got we ended up running out of sand, basically, because they waited kind of till the last day.
yes, sir.
So I do think there's an opportunity to do some volunteers. There is an opportunity, I know, for Barry. We ended up with a fire. This time it just didn't work out. We ended up with a fire crew that went out and filled bags. And, our problem is twofold. One, when you look at what the sandbags cost us to try to fill them all, no community does that anymore. The cost of that is, when you start figuring per bag what it cost you, it's just not feasible. We can do more good by doing more sandbags and more sand and getting it out there the way everybody else does than trying to do it ourselves and only doing a small amount. We're getting much more sand out. We're getting much more sandbags out the way we're doing it, which is what you really want. If you got a flood coming, I want to protect as many people as I can. But I do think that in the future, we could probably coordinate a little better and try to work with some volunteer groups. The other thing, and it's going to cost money to do it, is we do what the parish and everybody else does. We put the sand out, we put the bags out, we furnish them shovels. This time, I didn't have too many shovels walk off. By the last storm, they stole all my shovels, okay? The other thing that happens is people come with a trailer. It's supposed to be like 15, 20 sandbags, they coming and wiping us out and taking, 60 and 70 bags and loading them up. So I'm gonna have to think of a way. I didn't put a public works employee there guarding the pile, because what we were doing, we were cleaning drains. We combined parks employees and public works at times and put everybody out there cleaning drains. We're prepping for the storm. We're putting things down. Because we knew we have some road flooding, we pre-stashed barricades all over town. We really were prepped and did a good job between the police department, the fire department, and public works. Really got out there and did a lot of preemptive stuff this time. But that does take away from the crews that we have. I don't have, unlimited crews. It does take away, and we felt, leaving a guy standing there looking at the sandbags to make sure you don't take 60 of them was not the best use of time. So we got some issues. I agree. I would like to see, people not come with trailers and take that many so that everybody can have some. And I do know that we do have some elderly and have had that issue before. So yeah, let's think about how we could revisit that and maybe, get some people involved to help us.
And it's a testament to the city because we offered it, Mayor, you offered it from a certain time to a certain time, and if you couldn't make that, when you got off of work, then you was able to go to the parish. So I think it was coordinated very well. We had a few complaints, but my biggest statement was, it was offered, to those that can get it from that certain time frame, and then after that, I think the parish was doing it. I was told 24 hours.
They had,
Is
and
that
they
right?
had in more locations than us. I mean, the parish, it's a big parish, but like I know that when we finally ran out, we sent some people to Rhinella, and they got to get them there. So there was a lot of coordination between the parish and the city, and we're all in this together. That storm doesn't know where the parish line is and the city line is, so we are, and we'll continue to work together.
That's it, Mayor. I yield back at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin.
All right, just a couple of comments. I want to thank Public Works, of course, like everybody said. I want to thank Joe Livingston, our interim Public Works Director, for grabbing the bull by the horns, especially for a storm coming in, especially right whenever he's starting his interim position. And I also want to say some prayers for the people out to the west of us. They have a lot of work ahead of them and a long way to go. So we can all say some prayers for them, and anything that we can do here locally to help them out, we need to do that. So, and that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. The fire department, oh, yes, sir.
I apologize. Dustin,
Let's go ahead.
I would be remiss, Freddie, and I apologize. I know this ain't the normal way,
It's okay.
but there were two young men that were out there delivering sandbags. Antonio Francis and Brock Mitchell.
Okay.
Every time I called them to deliver sandbags, they delivered. And they took a lot of sandbags, but they went to our citizens.
Yeah, well, and that's fine.
And
That's fine.
I didn't want tonight to pass without acknowledging those guys
Great.
for the great service they did for our community before the storm.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I just have a few. The fire department is putting together and we'll be sending supplies to Lake Charles. I think they're leaving on Friday, so that's something that, we all should consider donating and helping, our fellow Louisianians to the west. Budget meetings will be the 8th and the 9th, so that's next week. So we'll have budget meetings next week so we can bring the budget and make the public presentation of the budget at the next council meeting on the 15th and then adopt it by the first meeting in October. We'll actually adopt it 2 weeks early. So anyway, but on the 8th and 9th, we'll have budget meetings. Our next meeting is September the 15th. We still have properties on Civic Source. And I too need to thank, I mean, Joe and I at 6 in the morning of the hurricane, we're at Ormoco getting the pumps running. And he just dove right in, but our police department is always there, our fire department, working with them during this storm. We did it for Barry, we did it for this one. This one was much more threatening to us. We took a lot more proactive steps, prior, and we got a great bunch of people. I mean, I'll tell you that I really felt that, I stayed here that night, as do the police, the firemen always on duty. People at the sewer plant spent the night at the sewer plant to make sure that kept running. Every department pitches in when we have, a natural disaster or a threat. And it's my honor to be here. I mean, to work with the group of people that I'm lucky enough to work with is just, like I said, there's no other way to put it. It's an honor. I'm blessed to have this job. That's about it. I'll ask my motion to adjourn. There you go.